All right, let's go. Welcome back, everyone. Today we're diving deep into the Premier League, and things are getting interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, no kid.
I mean, Manchester City, the team that's basically been unstoppable for years, they're suddenly on a losing streak.
A serious losing streak.
And their star player, Kevin De Bruyne, well, he's not even sure he'll be there next season.
It's crazy how these two storylines are kind of feeding into each other. De Bruyne's contract situation, Pep Guardiola's, longest losing streak ever, and the Premier League title race. Suddenly, it's wide open.
We've got some great articles with quotes from both De Bruyne and Guardiola, plus a bunch of expert analysis, so let's get right into it.
Sounds good.
Okay, first up, Kevin De Bruyne, the midfield maestro, as they call him. He basically said, I don't know if I'll be at City next season.
Huge news. Right.
Absolutely. So his contract's up at the end of this season, and talks were supposed to happen over the summer, but then, bam, he gets that injury against Brentford.
Yeah. Tough timing. Imagine trying to decide your future while you're recovering from a serious injury.
Exactly. So now the rumors are swirling. The Saudi Pro League is apparently throwing a ton of money at him.
I heard that. And even San Diego FC over in the MLS is supposedly interested.
Wild, right. Now, De Bruyne hasn't said he wants to leave City, but he said that Guardiola staying on could be a big factor in his decision. And, well, wouldn't you know it, Pep just signed a 2-year extension.
Wow, timing is everything. Do you think maybe De Bruyne held off on those contract talks because of Pep's new deal?
It's possible. It's almost like a chess match, right?
Totally.
Maybe he wants to see how this season plays out first, or maybe he's just using it as leverage in the negotiations.
Especially with how City's playing right now.
Exactly. Which brings us to point number 2, this crazy losing streak. 5 games in a row. For Guardiola, that's unheard of.
This is a manager who's built dynasties, for crying out loud. 6 Premier League titles in the last decade. And now, he's facing his worst run of losses ever.
Yeah. And it's not just the losses themselves, it's how they're losing.
Right.
That Tottenham game, I mean, Spurs were missing key players, but City, they looked lost out there. Just error after error.
Almost painful to watch.
Seriously. So, for you, was that the worst one? Of all the recent losses?
I think so. That one really exposed their weaknesses, I think.
Yeah. What's interesting is Guardiola's response. He's not making excuses. He's being brutally honest. He even said things could get worse.
He did. Do you think that's the right approach?
It's definitely a bold move. Maybe he's trying to motivate his team, or maybe he's just being realistic. I don't know. But clearly something's not working. So what's going on? What's behind this slump?
Well, I think the injuries are playing a big role.
Yeah.
Losing Rodri, it's a huge blow. He's the anchor of that midfield. And then Mateo Kovacic is out too.
Yeah. And Holland, while he's still scoring goals, he's missed some big chances lately.
You know, his finishing hasn't been as sharp as we're used to seeing. I wonder if City's tactics are part of the problem. Maybe he's not getting the service he needs.
Right. And other key players like Bernardo Silva and Phil Foden, they haven't been at their best either.
Definitely not.
And there's this one quote from Guardiola in one of the articles. He basically says he doesn't know how to fix things, which is, not something you hear from him very often.
That's not like him at all.
Right. It almost sounds like he's doubting himself.
Interesting. Could that be connected to the whole De Bruyne situation, do you think?
Maybe.
Like the uncertainty around his future, is it affecting team morale?
I mean, it's got to be weighing on everyone's minds, right?
Yeah, for sure. And let's be honest, De Bruyne's absence has been massive. He's the one who makes that whole team tick. He creates everything.
He's made a couple of appearances off the bench recently, but he's not back to his old self yet.
Not even close. So the big question is, when he does get back to full fitness, will it be enough to turn things around for City?
Or is this something deeper? A real systemic issue. We've got a lot to think about, and we're just getting started.
You know, when we were talking about what's not working, let's dig into those tactical struggles a bit more. One thing that's really standing out to me is City's attack looking kind of predictable.
It's funny you should say that because I was rewatching some games earlier, and it's like that their opponents have figured them out. You know what I mean? It's like they're relying too much on the same patterns and movements, the things that, used to bring them so much success.
Exactly. They're in a groove, but everyone else knows the steps now. City used to be famous for that fluid attack. So dynamic, right?
Right.
But now, lately, they seem to be missing that spark. That element of surprise.
And without De Bruyne, there's no one to really unlock those defenses, those killer passes that cut right through.
Yeah.
So they're really struggling against those teams that just sit back and absorb the pressure.
Park the bus.
Exactly. Park the bus. Take away De Bruyne's creativity, and suddenly every defense looks like a brick wall.
It's true. And it's not just the attack either.
Right.
They've been making these uncharacteristic errors at the back too.
Yeah.
And they're leading to goals. It's just not the City we're used to.
This is where I think Rodri's absence is a killer. He's the shield, right?
Absolutely.
In front of the defense, breaks up the plays, sets the tempo. They're exposed without him.
Huge gap in the midfield. Teams are finding all this space to exploit, and City just isn't as solid as usual. Yeah, it makes you wonder what this means for Guardiola.
I mean, he's supposed to be the tactical genius, right? But he's having a tough time.
Even he's struggling to find answers. Well, I mean, he's famous for adapting, right? Tweaking tactics, finding solutions.
Right.
But this season, I don't know, it seems like he's hit a wall. Remember that Mike Tyson quote he's always using?
Oh, yeah, I love that one.
Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth.
Yep.
Well, City's taken a few punches lately, and everyone's watching to see how are they going to respond.
Yeah. And I think how they respond, it'll tell us a lot. Not just about this season, but about, like, the future of the club. Can they get that swagger back, that dominance? Or have things changed?
Right. Have we entered a new era for City? One where maybe they're not as invincible as they used to be?
Big questions.
Huge. And it's important to remember, we're still pretty early in the season.
Yeah, that's true.
Things can change quickly. But this slump, it's definitely blown the title race wide open.
Yeah.
So, let's talk about that, especially how it impacts Liverpool, who are sitting at the top right now.
Right. That loss to Tottenham, it was like a turning point. Liverpool are looking so confident, such a healthy lead. Could this be their year, the year they finally, dethrone City?
I mean, they're definitely in the driver's seat. Klopp has built a phenomenal team. They want that title bad. But we can't forget City has been here before.
Right.
They know how to bounce back. They've done it. They've won titles. They've got the experience. They've got the talent to turn things around.
Yeah, that's true. But something just feels different this time. Like that aura of invincibility, it's gone.
I know what you mean.
Other teams aren't as intimidated. They sense weakness.
Like they smell blood in the water.
Exactly. And that changes the whole game, makes things unpredictable, which, as a fan, that's exciting.
Oh, absolutely. It makes the league so much fun to watch.
Yeah.
Who doesn't love a good title race?
Seriously. Okay, so let's recap for our listeners. De Bruyne's future, big question mark. Man City, in a historic slump.
Yeah.
And the title race, it's wide open. So what does this all mean for our listeners? What are the key takeaways here?
I think it shows us how captivating the Premier League is. We could be witnessing a real power shift, and we're not just watching it happen, we're breaking it all down, trying to figure it out together.
Exactly. And hopefully you, our listeners, are thinking about this too, thinking about all of the possibilities.
Yeah.
Because that's what makes football so great. The drama, the uncertainty.
The what ifs.
The what ifs. Speaking of, let's get a little more personal, shall we? What's going on in De Bruyne's head? I mean, he's been so loyal to City, but he's also at this point in his career where, I don't know, what do you think he's thinking?
It's got to be tough, right? And he's coming off that big injury, another layer of complexity. Is he worried about getting back to form? His legacy? Maybe he just wants a new challenge?
It's like a puzzle, trying to figure out what's influencing his decision.
It really is. And the best part is we're not just talking formations and tactics. We're talking about human emotions, motivations, aspirations. And that's what makes sports so fascinating.
Totally. So do you think loyalty to City is enough? Or is it something else? Ambition, that last big contract.
That's the big question, isn't it? What will tip the scales for De Bruyne?
So much to consider, right? But let's zoom out for a second. Big picture time. Think about it. De Bruyne's future. Uncertain. City. Struggling. And the title race? Well, it's anyone's game. So here's the big question for me.
Yeah.
Even if De Bruyne stays and City somehow turns things around, are they still like the team to beat?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Has the Premier League changed that much? Or are we at the end of an era?
I think even if they fix the tactics, get De Bruyne back to his best.
Right.
There's just this feeling that they're not invincible anymore. Like other teams just aren't afraid of them.
They've seen City bleed, you know what I mean? And that's huge.
Yeah.
It's like that Mike Tyson quote, the one Guardiola loves.
Oh, yeah.
Everyone has a plan until they get punched in the mouth. Well, City's been punched, haven't they? Now we're all waiting to see how they react.
And I think that reaction is going to tell us everything. About the future of the club, I mean.
Yeah.
Can they find that swagger again, that ruthlessness?
Or are we seeing something new? A City that's, I don't know, more vulnerable?
More human, I guess.
Right. I mean, it's a great story, isn't it?
Yeah.
Empires rising and falling, dynasties crumbling, and it's all happening right there on the pitch. Proof that nothing lasts forever,
Yeah.
even in football.
And that's why we love it. Oh, always a new challenger, always a twist. So, De Bruyne, Manchester City. We'll definitely be keeping an eye on them. Who knows what's going to happen next?
It's going to be a fun ride, that's for sure. And for our listeners, I think this is a chance to really go deep. With the Premier League, I mean. Think beyond the headlines.
Yeah.
You know, the tactics, the stories, who's got the power.
We've given you the pieces. Now it's up to you to figure out what happens next. Will De Bruyne stay? Will City dominate again? Will Liverpool finally get their hands on that trophy?
Only time will tell.
And that's what's so great about it. The uncertainty, the possibilities, keeps us coming back for more.
It really does.
So keep those questions in mind as you watch the Premier League, I mean. We'll be back soon with more deep dives. Until then, thanks for listening.